We've spent most of the morning talking about the real substantive need for Democrats to make it their focus that every American everywhere can have the opportunity to earn a good life. And ultimately, that's the real reason that we should embrace an opportunity narrative and agenda. But I have good news for you. This is one of those times that the substance actually lines up with the politics. So today, we're going to preview to you some research that we just got out of the field with that shows that an opportunity narrative resonates broadly and deeply with the very voters that Democrats need to win in 2018 and 2020. We've spent the last few months working with David Binder Research, and his team is here in the audience, to really understand how voters are thinking about a whole range of issues. We did 6 in-person focus groups, and then we just got out of the field with a 1,200-person poll of likely 2018 voters. So you're hearing it first here, and we'll release this poll next week so that you can share it with all of your friends. And what the numbers show is that an opportunity narrative resonates with the way that voters are thinking about the economic problems that they face in their lives. It resonates with their worldview and their values. It makes them feel like the ideas are things that would actually work in their communities. And ultimately, it makes them more likely to vote for a candidate who is carrying these ideas. The upshot is that opportunity Democrats can win. So let's start with voters' perception of the problem. We know that voters are really anxious about the changes that are happening in the economy, and we certainly saw this in our poll. 55% of voters say that when thinking about their own economic circumstances, it is getting very hard to earn a good life. And 52% say that they stress about their own personal, financial, economic situation month to month. When you narrow that down, though, to the voters that Democrats need to win in order to be successful in 2018 and 2020, these numbers get even bigger. So among Democrats and independents, Democrats, 62% say that it's hard to earn a good life. 60% of independents say the same. And when you ask them about what's causing this anxiety, they, not surprisingly, talk about the changing economy. But really, when they think about the changes in the economy, they actually don't think it's that the economy has already changed and we're done with that. They think that the changes are continuing and that things are actually going to get worse if you look over the horizon. So 52% of voters say that the changing economy is limiting their opportunity to earn a better life. 51% say it's going to get even harder in the future for them to do that. That's 30 points more than the number of people who say it's going to get easier. And this problem isn't something that's abstract that they're thinking about as a macroeconomic problem. They're seeing it in their own communities. When we ask them about the prospects for young people in their communities, more voters say that young people are going to have less opportunity in the future than they did in the past. And that's even more acute when you look at the voters that Democrats absolutely need to win. So by 7 points, the general public says that there's going to be less opportunity for young people in their community in the future. But look at those numbers among Democrats. By 30 points, less opportunity. 20 points among independents, among people of color, union households, every place across the demographic spectrum, people are seeing this crisis of opportunity. And even here in this room, after tallying your poll this morning, by 8 points, you all think there will be less opportunity in the future for young people in your community than there was in the past. But I think the real depth of this opportunity crisis comes into full view when you ask another question. We said, think about a 17-year-old in your community. Do you think that they're going to have more opportunity if they stay put or if they move to somewhere else? By 24 points, voters say that a young person in their community would have to move. And those numbers are astronomical when you look at the Democratic coalition. Democrats by 35 points, independents by 31, people of color by 23 points, union households by 9 points. And it's across the country in terms of where you live. But not surprisingly, given those maps that you saw earlier from John, the opportunity crisis has reached a 4-alarm fire stage when you look at people who live in small towns and rural areas, where by almost 50 points, those folks say that someone is going to have to move in order to get opportunity. So we also asked about another kind of a light bulb moment we had in the last few months as we were traveling around the country. And John talked about this a little. When we asked people about their economic problems, very few people talked about income inequality. I went to Miami. People talked about income inequality in the middle of Miami. That was the only place I heard it. So it just wasn't at the top of their mind in terms of how they're facing economic problems in their own lives. So we asked this question, which is a bigger challenge, inequality of opportunity or inequality of income? And voters say inequality of opportunity is the bigger problem that they face in their daily lives by 8 points. Now, when you dig under the numbers, Democrats are split on this question. They also worry about income inequality. Independents pick opportunity. But what I thought was most fascinating when you dig into the crosstabs is that actually it's people of upper income that are saying they're worried about income inequality, which tracks with my conversations in Miami. By 10 points, people of upper income say, I'm more concerned about income inequality because they live in urban areas where they're very much seeing both the wealth and the disparity. But for the folks that were worried are falling behind, what they're saying they want is actually opportunity. And those numbers got even more stark when you ask them about government. What should government be focused on? We said, do you want government to focus on policies that'll spread opportunity to more people and places, or policies that are going to address income inequality? And what we found was a 20-point gap. People want government to focus on expanding opportunity. And here, those numbers carry through to every single demographic. Democrats want opportunity, independents want opportunity, people of color want opportunity, millennials, union households, and the folks in this room all want opportunity. In this room, by 42 points. So when you're thinking about the problems that voters are facing in the economy, when you're thinking about the opportunity crisis, they're clearly connecting that with their lived experience. And that's why that problem definition actually trumps Trump's problems definition. So Donald Trump would say, we must protect our borders from the ravages of other countries, making our products, stealing our companies, and destroying our jobs. That tough talk gets about 65% of people to support it, and about half of Democrats, which is a little shocking. Then we tested the Sanders-style narrative, that the economic problem that we face is an enormous economic and political power of a billionaire class. There, about 69% of voters say that they agree with that statement, and 8 in 10 Democrats. But an opportunity description of the problem has the broadest and the deepest support. 75% of voters, 10 points more than agree with Donald Trump's statement, say that we need an opportunity agenda for a digital age so that everyone, everywhere, can have the opportunity to earn a better life. And that actually had just as much resonance with Democratic voters as the Sanders narrative. And this opportunity narrative resonates not just broadly, but also deeply. And that relates back to something that John talked about a little earlier. It's because it's the only one on the table that really connects with that deep, core American value of earning. And John mentioned that this value is a little bit different in the United States than it is elsewhere. We're not trying to run in France. But when you are looking at what the American public say they want, on a scale of 0 to 10, they are much more likely to say that hard work is very important to getting ahead. They don't want free stuff or giveaways. They don't talk about wanting a universal basic income given to them from the government. Across the demographic groups, people say they want to earn their way. And that's what we found as well. We asked the same question that Pew did, and we found that 8 in 10 said that hard work was important to getting ahead in life. 65% say it's very important, a 9 or a 10. And those numbers were actually very similar among Democrats. When you look across the entire population, the mean answer on this question was 8.8 out of 10. Americans are obsessed with earning and hard work. So clearly the opportunity narrative resonates with voters' experience of the problems, it resonates with their values, but what about solutions? Well, we tested those too. And it turns out that the policies in the opportunity agenda have really wide and deep support as well. So we tested a dozen policies from our package that John put up earlier, and I'm not going to go through every single one of them, and so don't worry about writing down all the data. It's going to be public soon, but it is suffice it to say that across all of these policies, it's very clear that voters said that every single one of the opportunity policies would improve things in their own community. 6 and 10 for many of them, upwards of 8 and 10 for the most popular policies. They also said that these were new ideas. And that's something we know is super important in a time where voters continue to keep begging us for change. So across the board, between 6 and 10 and 9 and 10 said that these were new ideas. And not surprisingly, when you add that together, it means that they said that they would vote for an opportunity Democrat who carried this agenda. Again, the lowest we got was 6 and 10, upwards of 8 and 10, saying that this kind of agenda would make them more likely to vote for a candidate. So let's dig into 3 of the policies that John mentioned very briefly so that you can see those numbers in detail. Apprenticeship America. That's the idea that we could create 1 million new training positions directly linked to good jobs in this country. It's hugely popular. It's across the board with the voters that Democrats need to win in 2018 and 2020. 8 in 10 Democrats say it would improve things in their community and it would make them more likely to vote for a candidate. 7 in 10 among independents. Among young Democrats who we know we need to energize and get to the polls, 8 in 10 say that this would both help in their community in particular, and that it would make them more likely to vote for a candidate. John also talked about the working wage break. Similar numbers here. The idea of eliminating federal taxes on the first $15,000 of income was popular across the board. You see 8 in 10 Democrats, 7 in 10 independents say again, it would help in their community, it would make them more likely to vote for this candidate. And among young Democrats for this one, 9 in 10 agree with those statements. Let's do one more. Boomer Corps, Jim Kessler's favorite idea that he's been talking about for like 17 years. This is the idea that we would create a paid national service program for active seniors who want to continue to contribute to their community during retirement. 8 in 10 across the board say that it would help in their community and make them more likely to vote for a candidate. So it's very clear that standing alone, each of these policies is really popular across the board with those voters that Democrats need to win. But what happens when you compare them to other policies that other folks have put on the table? Well, we tested that too. And on jobs, we said, would you prefer a candidate who supports a public-private partnership approach to job creation? Would you support one who just wants to reduce regulations and taxes in order to create jobs, or one that supports a federal jobs guarantee? Opportunity trounced the jobs guarantee by 30 points. And actually, what surprised me most was that number was even bigger among Democrats, by 35 points. Democrats said they would prefer a public-private partnership approach to creating jobs than a federal job guarantee. So what about on wages? We've heard a lot about raising the minimum wage. What do voters think about that? We said, do you want to keep the current minimum wage? Do you want to raise it to $15 everywhere? Or do you want to have an increase, but a regional minimum wage that's pegged to the cost of living in each area? And again, the opportunity policy this time beat the other 2 options combined. By 43 points, it beat the idea of raising the minimum wage to $15 everywhere. Among Democrats, it beat $15 an hour by 31 points. Let's go to healthcare. We know it's a huge issue for voters right now. We said, do you want to repeal and replace the ACA? Do you want a candidate who's going to improve the ACA and expand coverage? Or do you want someone who's going to support a single government plan like Medicare that will cover everyone? And again, the opportunity policy of improving and expanding the ACA won by 7 points. And that number was even greater among Democrats. So then I had to try to figure out what was going on there. It was actually that liberal independents were driving support for the single government plan. So clearly, an opportunity agenda appeals to swing voters, and we know that that's important, but we also need to appeal to the base voters that are going to show up for Democrats at the polls. We need to energize them. So how did it do among them? Well, I like to say that Democratic women are leading the way in the Trump era, back to where we need to go. Turns out they back opportunity by 31 points on jobs, by 26 points on wages, and by 19 points on healthcare. We know that voters of color are the real base of the Democratic Party in terms of loyalty, and they want opportunity too, by 24 points on jobs, by 38 points on wages, and on healthcare, they were evenly split between the idea of a single government plan and improving the ACA. Millennials, like me, are the future of the party, and they're begging for opportunity. On jobs, by 12 points. On wages, by 38 points. And on healthcare, by 7 points. So when you add this all together, we tested 3 agendas. We said the opportunity agenda versus a Trump-style approach of repealing the ACA, building a border wall, renegotiating trade agreements, or a Sanders-style approach that said single government plan for healthcare, $15 minimum wage, and free college. Opportunity wins. And it's not driven by mushy middle voters who don't know what they think. By 11 points, opportunity beat a Sanders-style approach among Democrats. So opportunity works with the voters that you need to win in a primary. The foundation of the Democratic coalition supports an opportunity agenda over either the Trump or the Sanders-style approach. When you add the agenda together, Democratic women support opportunity by 11 points. Voters of color by 10 points. Millennial voters by 13 points. Those are folks that we need to get to the polls and energize in the coalition for Democrats to win. Overall, that adds up to Democrats preferring opportunity by 11 points. But we know in order to beat Trump, we also have to win in a general. And the opportunity agenda trounces the other Democratic approach on the table with those that we need to win in a general. In fact, when you go head-to-head among independents, opportunity wins against a Trump-style agenda by 34 points. So if Democrats can embrace an opportunity narrative and agenda, we can succeed at getting this unhinged and dangerous man out of the White House. Which means, in short, opportunity Democrats could save the country. Thank you.